Well, it is, as I said, it's my honor to be here. Now, a quick disclaimer. I don't know Brent Darnell. I've never met him before. I didn't even look at his slides. But Brent, you and I, man, I'll tell you what, we've got some kind of mind meld going on here. A year ago, I was hired by Kirby Risk. Now, I'm a guy coming from outside of the industry. I grew up in healthcare, and my passion is around career coaching, assessment work, and if you ask my wife, she'll tell you I'm OCD about networking. I'm constantly connecting to people. Well, guess what? That can get you a job in talent acquisition and development. So for the past year, I've been having a good time there, and I've learned an awful lot, and I'm going to share some of that with you. But here's the big thing, what I did not know, I didn't see it coming, but talent acquisition today, and do we have any HR talent acquisition people here? Okay. The truth is, at the end of my talk, you're going to realize you are all talent acquisition people. Because today's talent acquisition job, it's a marketing job. And it requires not just those of us in HR to do this work, it means every one of us has to be a marketer, a brand ambassador. No, you don't have to be what Peyton Manning is to pizza, or Brent Darnell is to the industry, or a great storyteller like the very last speaker today. I got to see her talk about a firecracker. Kathy Berryhill, freshman at Ball State University. Does she have a story to tell? Now we need 100 more like her. But for most of us, and particularly for those introverts, by now you're either checking out or you're starting to get nervous, and I'm talking to you in this way. Well, here's the great gift that introverts bring to the world of networking. Introverts, unlike their extrovert brethren, know when to talk and when to listen. Right? Right? You know what I'm talking about. They know how to get out of their own way. So here's my thinking. I've been thinking about this a lot. What if we all could get better at talking and listening? What if we all could get better at telling our why? Why did you get into the industry? Why do you do what you do? And maybe more importantly, why do you stick with it? Why haven't you jumped ship at this point? All right, so for the past year, I've been kind of experimenting. And so I've learned a lot about social media and social networking. So I just want to share with you, if you don't already have that appreciation, that maybe one of the greatest avenues for us to start to tell that story and to attract that attention is through LinkedIn, is through Facebook. How many folks on LinkedIn? All right. How many of you folks are really using LinkedIn to brand your company, to reach out to people? All right, so a few less. All right. So I've got a few tips, a few techniques. I've also got a few examples of some people, some leaders that I personally know, who I think have done an excellent job of branding themselves, their companies, and their culture. Here's where I learned about networking. I used to work for a company called Right Management. I was a career coach at an earlier part of my career. And I loved that work because what I loved was helping somebody who was out of work, the wind was out of their sails, getting them back on the path to find a best fit job. And at Right Management, we practiced a very simple model called the ABCs of networking. So you had basically to have three groups in order to find a best fit job. Now the folks in your A list, well, they were the people who wanted you to be successful. Your family, your friends, but also those people with whom you might have some frequent contact. A doctor, a dentist, the person who cuts your hair. Unfortunately for me recently, 4 trips to the auto mechanic in 2 months. That's another story. But it's those folks, the folks in your A group, whose job it is to introduce you to their influencers. That's the B group. The job of the B group, and they tend to be the really well-networked people, their job is to introduce you to somebody who can make a hiring decision, somebody in a company, somebody who's a contractor. So using this method, we were pretty successful at helping people find jobs. Now my guess is now, when you've got an open position, even before it gets posted, you get the word out, right? You get it out informally. Last year, according to LinkedIn, 60% of all hires We're done through referrals. We're done through networking. Don't stop doing that. What I'm suggesting, though, is we take this notion of networking and apply it to the art of the long term. So not just networking to fill that position that's open tomorrow, next week, 6 months down the road, but using this methodology to get the word out to those folks, from those high school kids to those mid-career folks in their 30s and 40s, that this is a great industry, a great collection of fields to be in. All right. Well, I knew in putting this talk together I'd have to come up with some kind of method. So in thinking about it, here's, I guess, what I would call my method. So it's really less about, from a philosophical and an approach, it's less about hunting, it's more about gardening, because it takes some time. It takes the preparation, the tilling the soil and planting the seeds in water and fertilizing. So you've got to be patient with it. The other thing I've learned about good networking over the years, remember, it's human relations. You're not going in for the kill. Networking, you might say, is a little bit like dating. You want to figure out, is there any chemistry here between this other person and I? Common values, common experience. Would I be willing to go out on a limb for them? And would they for me? And if you can answer yes to that, then that's probably a pretty good networking connection. You also, I think in order to do it, you need to kind of make it a habit. Just a few hours, a few people a week. And you do that over time, and in a few months, in a few years, you'll see your networking group grow. All right. I've also applied some of this thinking to using social media. Now, over the past year, I've made some connections with some really great recruiters. So I took some of their advice. I started to experiment as I was reaching out to folks on LinkedIn. Now, the first approach up here, and can everybody read that? You okay? Can you read that? The first approach was go straight for the person who I thought would be a good fit for the role. Come on, we've got a job. Give me a call. That worked well when the other person on the other end of the line was ready to jump. However, as I played with it, and I looked back over several months, I looked at the numbers, the response rate I got was about 1 in 35. And that wasn't very satisfying to me. So I thought, well, come back, David, to what you know about networking. You know how sometimes you forget what you know? So I came back and tried a little bit more of an indirect approach. Using that approach, I got about a 1 in 20 rate. Here's where the gold is. I should have known. In good networking, it's not just about asking, it's about giving. It's about having a heart of generosity. Using that approach, 1 in 11 response. I want it to go up. But this is maybe the most important thing I'm going to tell you in the few minutes that I have with you. All right, sources for referrals, the obvious ones, the network you already have, new hires. Don't overlook some of those job candidates who may have applied for the job, but they just weren't right for that role, or they weren't ready for you right now, because they know people who could eventually work for you. All right. I mentioned earlier that I've met some people over time who are doing a great job, I think, of using social media to brand themselves. Kevin Powell's the CEO of Van Meter. It's an electrical supply and distribution company, kind of our cousin company out in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I got to spend a week with Kevin, got to work with some of his staff, so I can vouch for him or vouch for his statement that when he says, I'm a servant leader, I got to see that in action. In fact, Kevin has built such a great organization and networked so much that they literally have a waiting list of people who want to go work for them. Who doesn't want that problem, right? Another colleague, friend of mine, up in the upper left there in the picture, that's Sharon Bowler. Sharon's the president of a company called Bottom Line Performance. They do instructional design, they design games for companies, award-winning company, top 100 company in Indiana. What I love about what Sharon has done, very strategic, She uses LinkedIn to talk about projects, relationships with customers, the awards they've won. When you go to her Facebook page, or the Facebook page of Bottom Line Performance, you get a sense of what it would be like to work there. They're a fun-loving group. And you can see pictures and videos of their parties. She also is able to promote her values and the things that are important to her and the company. In fact, the picture that you see here is an example of their philanthropy. It's every year they do a fundraiser for Dayspring Homeless Shelter. So again, I think a really smart use of social media. Last but not least, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Jim Risk, the son of the founder of Kirby Risk, now, shameless plug, now in his 90th year of successful operations. I didn't just take a job with Kirby Risk. I joined a company whose values resonated with my own. So when Jim Risk says we treat our customers, our vendors, our employees like friends and family, he means it. It's, you know what, that's so old-fashioned, it's kind of new again. But that's the reason that I'm there. So, Brent, thank you. Simon Sinek, as you've already heard perhaps, says, he asks us, what's our why? So again, I'm going to ask you to imagine, what if we all could get really good if we were willing to put the effort into it and to focus on our own emotional intelligence, to tell the story of why the trades, why come into the trades, and why stay. Thank you for your time and attention.